Good evening and welcome to 27 Minutes here on UPN 27. Well, there will be a new chairman for the Dubois County Republicans. The announcement was made at the party's annual Lincoln Day dinner last Sunday night. Scott Blasey, who has held the post of chairman for the past 4 years, announced that Mr. Don Hayes had been elected by the county committee to succeed him. Hayes has served as a Republican precinct committeeman since 1970. He served as treasurer of the Central Committee from 1972 through 75 and chairman from 1975 until 77 and from 79 until 89. He's been a delegate to 14 consecutive Republican state conventions, serving on the state platform committee in 1984, 86, and 88. In 1988, he co-chaired the state campaign for Dean Evans for superintendent of public instruction. From 1994 through 96, he served as a member of the Dubois County Election Board. All other current members of the Republican Central Committee were re-elected. They include Vice Chairman Sheila Eckstein, Secretary Larry Clem, Treasurer Ken Schmidt. Scott Blasey chose not to seek re-election for another 4-year term. The Dubois County Museum Board of Directors took time out to thank area businesses and individuals for their donations and support for their new museum at their first annual dinner. Last night, Tony Frick was there.
There's a lot of interest in establishing a museum in Dubois County.
The Dubois County Museum continues to build its foundation and prepare the way to preserve county history for all ages. At their first annual membership dinner, they introduced both their guest speaker, John Harris, the Director of Local Services for the Indiana Historical Society, and their museum logo. The logo includes a rendering of the 1818 Portersville Courthouse. Guest speaker John Harris spoke of his pride in the group's foundation efforts, listed the benefits of the museum, and addressed the need for continued community support. Mr. Harris noted the anxiety, excitement, and skills needed to establish a museum's foundations. He noted why preserving the county history would benefit many.
This museum, in part, will serve as the community's memory. Another benefit of this museum will come from tourism. People pass through Jasper on their way to other locations every day of the year. This museum will give them a reason to stop and spend some time. And some of those people who stop to see the museum will likely also spend some of their money, perhaps buying a history book or some other publication. More, most likely, will be spent when they stop at the filling station to fill.
Noted that one product of a museum is community awareness.
First you have the awareness, and then you have appreciation. One flows from the other. And from that comes other byproducts, such as people beginning to think, well, maybe we should preserve those structures that make up our historic downtown. Or maybe a teenager, because he suddenly really sees the community or a building in a new light, will say, maybe we shouldn't vandalize it.
Mr. Harris felt museums spark community involvement and strengthen community roots, even for newcomers.
As residents of this county, you will enjoy the benefits of this new museum facility. But along with those benefits comes a responsibility. One of the first questions asked is, where can we get grants to support the museum? And frankly, that question always saddens me just a little bit, because the reality is that every nonprofit organization, including a museum, ultimately must depend on its own community for the bulk of its support.
Museum's foundation and future, he noted, will need the support of government, clubs, businesses, and organizations.
Dubois County is fortunate to have people interested enough to invest their time, energy, and money into getting this museum started. Some of those people are sitting up here, some are out in the audience. As I travel around the state, I see truly excellent museums.
It's that community support that could pave the way for excellent, mediocre, or sad museums.
Your museum, as I said earlier, is off to a fine start. It has great potential, but will the Dubois?
Supportive community sources and especially individuals are key to making a museum a success. Mr. John Harris also reflected his hope that it would be a museum of interaction between generations, a new educational facility for all ages. Tony Frick, TV 27 News.
The Dubois County Museum is now in its collection stage and welcomes artifacts related to Dubois County history. Stay tuned, we will have more after this.
Hello again, this is John Shorgan, the staff of the Indiana House, with another update on the 1999 session of the Indiana General Assembly. And once again joining us is State Representative Dave Crooks from Washington, representing the 63rd House District. David, been a long week, hasn't it?
Has been a long week, and I'm afraid it's going to be longer before it's over.
Yeah. As we speak to you, we're closing in on two of the major deadlines for the first half of the 1999 session. March 4th, which is the second reading deadline, and March 8th, which is the final time a bill can get out of its House of Origin. And we'd like to start off this week by talking a little bit about the significance of those two dates. First of all, I guess March 4th, second reading, why is that important?
Well, it's important, John, because it's the last day that second reading amendments are eligible to be able to tag a bill that's moving through the process. So if you didn't have a chance to put on a way to either improve or even hurt a bill at that point, then you're out of luck, and you have to wait to either vote the bill up or down when it comes to third reading, which that'll be on March 8th.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about an amendment process, and this can, sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad. Now there are instances, obviously, when for a number of legislators, this is the first time they've seen a bill,
right,
they can offer amendments that may very well help that legislation.
And most of the time that's usually the intent of the amendment process. However, there are times when someone really can't stand a bill, and they know that it might be easier to kill that bill once it's eligible for thirds if they can tag that bill with the second reading amendment that might make the bill a little bit less attractive. I'm thinking back to a few years ago when Representative Mangus didn't like the time zone proposal that was being offered, so he threw an amendment in which basically killed the bill, which said we'll split the difference by 30 minutes on changing the daylight savings time. And I think he even had a wackier one that talked about how grandchildren would have to go to their parents' or grandparents' homes to reset their VCRs every time we would go in and out of daylight savings time. So people might think that that's absurd, and it really is, but it is sometimes part of the process and how you can weaken a bill, and we had that happen even this week on a hunting bill.
Hunting bill, what happened there?
In that particular piece of legislation, we have a representative that believes that if you are intoxicated, you should not be able to have a firearm as you're hunting, which will sound like it makes sense to a lot of people, but one representative offered an amendment that would basically say that you could never be intoxicated when you're fishing. Well, I know in southern Indiana that's probably a popular pastime as well as it is across the entire nation, that you might take a six-pack with you and go out fishing. So obviously that bill's not going anywhere, and as the bill became eligible for the final vote this week, she pulled the bill because I think she knew what the end result was going to be.
I think it's almost a constitutional priority to have a six-pack when you go fishing, isn't it?
It may be for some, I don't know. But again, we laugh about the process sometimes because it does get a little strange, to say the least, but it really is part of the process, and I think it's good for the most part because, Indiana, even though we're a very conservative state, it's very diverse. The people in Washington, Indiana, or in Huntingburg, their thoughts are obviously a lot different than those that might be in Fort Wayne or Gary. When you bring these 100 legislators together, it's hard telling what kind of ideas and proposals that you might have on particular legislation.
Yeah, there's also the amendments that come to mind that really the intent is not so much now, but looking down, say, the election next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of people that do focus on, how's this going to affect my next election, and as a legislator, you can't help from sometimes think about that. But obviously, I think most legislators are up here trying to do what's best for their district, no matter what the consequences might be politically. But there's no doubt that many have it in mind a lot.
Okay, that's March 4th. March 8th, final time for third reading. If you don't get a bill out by then.
Absolutely. We had, 1,100 and some bills filed this session in the House alone. The best that we're going to have out of this House is around 360, and probably not even that many. So we're probably closer to the 300 range, which again, it's typical that 20% of the bills proposed make it through this process, and we still see many of those bills die by the time they get to the Senate. So
yeah, once again, we've talked about in the past. Once again, this points out the effectiveness, basically, of the committee process in taking care of this.
It really is. I mean, a good committee chair is able to kill a lot of legislation that is just in the best interest usually of most people across the state. However, there are going to be some that will always argue whether or not a bill should or shouldn't be heard, and that's just some of the tough decisions that have to be made by those committee chairmen.
Okay. We have close to 150 bills, I believe, that are still alive or still eligible for consideration in the House. The big one, of course, is the budget, which has already been sent on to the Senate, but we have a number of proposals that are still alive, including a couple that Dave is working on. Let's start off with a bill that just got out earlier this week, House Bill 1243 on home energy assistance. Tell us about it.
John, that idea came to me from a constituent in the Washington area who had noticed that people who already lived in subsidized housing were receiving additional subsidies when it came to home energy assistance during the winter months under the Project Safe program. And it's not really a bad idea that people in need receive additional assistance, but what was disturbing to me and this person who brought it to my attention is that when a person is already receiving a government subsidy and all of a sudden they receive an extra subsidy, the fund is only available to so many people because the dollars are not quite there to take care of everybody, and it's knocking other people who have no subsidy whatsoever. And a lot of these people in these subsidized housings were never going to lose their utilities to begin with because the way they pay their rent, their utilities are actually included. So we looked into this problem, and it did make it through the committee process. The bill was actually amended from its original language, but basically when FSSA makes a decision in those local agencies, such as the one in my area, Wabash Valley Human Services, there is a matrix system that they have put together that's improved over the past few years. You earn more points if you're not receiving subsidized housing. And what we tried to do in this piece of legislation is to make sure that we don't go backwards and that we do give priority to those who are not receiving any assistance whatsoever. But it will not eliminate someone who lives in subsidized housing from getting help. It just puts them a little bit lower down on the totem pole, so to speak. If there was money to take care of everybody's need, then obviously I would not have a problem with it. But when money is tight, when you're trying to give this type of assistance and to make sure someone's utilities aren't cut off, I just felt it was important to address this issue, and I think we've worked out a fair compromise to all.
Yep. Welcome back. As spring approaches, so does tornado season here in Indiana. Tony Frick attended a severe weather spotter class in this Wednesday's statewide drill to see how Dubois County emergency management and civil defense units deal with tornado notifications.
Hello, this is Dubois County Emergency Management Office. I'm calling in reference to the tornado exercise, and this exercise is in progress at this time. Okay, thanks.
April through June are considered statistically the peak months for tornado occurrence in Indiana. Based on averages figured between 1961 and 1990, Indiana's reported tornadoes averaged 23 per year, or nearly 7 for every 10,000 square miles.
The severe storm spotter provides very important information into this equation.
These past 2 weeks, Dubois County Emergency Management and Civil Defense have been preparing for those possible tornado occurrences. First with a spotter severe weather training seminar, and then by testing their tornado warning response plan and equipment, as did many Indiana counties in statewide drills this past Wednesday. For Dubois County, severe weather spotters are a very important element in that tornado warning system.
Tornado warning was issued at 13:46 local time.
The warning system also relies on timely and accurate notifications. For Dubois County Emergency Management Director Mary Miller's team, an official warning sets in motion their own county notifications.
This is Dubois County Emergency Management. This is a tornado warning exercise.
Assistant Director Dave Nugent puts together the county's response plan, but he notes that the official tornado warning authority lies outside county boundaries.
Okay, we cannot actually issue a tornado warning. That's up to the National Weather Service office. Dubois County's responsibility of Louisville, and Louisville has to issue all tornado warnings for Dubois County. If a weather spotter or another individual in Dubois County observes severe weather, it has to be submitted to the Weather Service office in Louisville, and they will in turn issue a tornado warning if it's warranted.
Additional check-in, the 9 UIE.
It is for this reason that the accuracy and honesty of field severe weather spotters and citizen reports are essential to the Dubois County Emergency Management's own goal of protecting life and property.
So we take the information, forward it to their office so we can have an actual warning issued. We encourage all weather spotters, the general public, if they observe severe weather, submit it to their local law enforcement agency. It could be the city police, state police, call the emergency management, just so the information is forwarded to Louisville. That's the way an actual tornado warning can be issued. They have to get the information, the input into their office before we can get it out.
Again, this is a test tornado warning issued by the National Weather Service office in Louisville, Kentucky. This is a test.
Following a drill, response time and plans are reviewed to seek solutions. For the afternoon drill, the notification to protect life and property took anywhere from 3 to 10 plus minutes through its many backup sources and channels of notification.
When our county is put under a warning, our job in here and the emergency management staff and amateur radio operators, the first priority is to get out our tornado plan. On this plan, we have 4 separate groups that we make calls to, and the first thing we do is notify the media, notify the city halls, and then we proceed with the other calls. We just let them know that the tornado warning has been issued for the county and that they are to proceed with their plans. And once we get all those calls handled, we then report to Louisville that whatever we see is coming.
Although the county's own emergency management team cannot issue an official warning, they can set safety precautions into motion with the assistance of reliable storm spotting information.
Called in, since it was just a demonstration anyways, a drill. They just called in from wherever they're at, basically just to do a check-in. Normally during a Skywar net, we would have people that would actually go out in the field, weather spotters go out there and check to see what the weather conditions are actually happening out there and report back in again. That way we can basically track how the storm is doing, how it's progressing in that there toward us. If it starts to change direction, we can always reallocate the spotters to another new area to keep track of the storm. A lot of those people that do check in the nets primarily are wherever they're at. If they're at home, they'll check in and report conditions that are around their house. If they're out on the road, we have people check in that are out driving down, out mobile. They'll do check-ins to what it is while they're driving, stuff like that. But today was primarily just to try out the system, make sure our equipment was working properly.
The Skywar net and severe weather spotters are the local eyes for the system. The average tornado moves from southwest to northeast, but tornadoes have been known to move in any direction. The average speed is 30 miles per hour, but vary from stationary to nearly 70 miles per hour. Getting details and quick reports is important.
The local state police dispatcher or other dispatcher locally can put out an unconfirmed report of a tornado or something of that nature, unconfirmed report of a funnel aloft. This can be done, but it's not actually issuing a tornado warning. So that's the best we can do without having a tornado warning issued. We try to get the information out just as quickly as we can, but as far as the tornado warning, it'll have to be issued by Louisville before we can actually call it that.
Tony Frick, TV 27 News.
We will wrap up this week's edition of 27 Minutes right after this, so please stay with us. Okay, here we go. It's now time for today's Homeowner, brought to you by Cremp Lumber Company of Jasper.
Many times if you're experiencing low water pressure at any faucet in your house, it may be as simple as cleaning your aerator from the end of the spout. All you do is disassemble it like this. You need to be careful to keep up with the pieces. You can see some of the debris. Take everything apart, and generally we'll use a straight pin like this and a little bit of water to really clean all of the little jets out of this. You get it good and clean, both this one piece here as well as the screen. Then you're able to reassemble them just like you took it apart. And then you're able to put it back together, and this should significantly increase the water pressure in any faucet that you have where you find a little bit of the debris. And you'll probably find it in almost every faucet.
Turning to sports, after 13 seasons as head basketball coach at Forest Park High School, Denny Dubois has decided to step down from his coaching position. Just this past season, Dubois notched his 300th career coaching win with a victory over Corden. The Rangers were 12-10 this season before losing to sectional champion Mater Dei in the semifinals. In those 13 seasons as coach of the Rangers, Dubois was 169-115. His teams averaged 13 wins a season and at one point had 8 consecutive winning seasons. Dubois also coached the Rangers to their only sectional championships, those being in 1990 and 93. The Dubois County basketball scene is losing a great one in Denny Dubois. Elsewhere in sports, spring training has started for all the Major League Baseball teams. Former Jasper standout Phil Kendall is with the Milwaukee Brewers. He talks about his first couple of years in pro baseball after graduating from Jasper in '96.
The first year I actually sat there in Helena, Montana and watched for about 3 weeks or 4 weeks before they finally sent me back home. And it was an adjustment being 18 years old, 2,000 miles away from home, 4 days after the high school state tournament. So you have to grow up pretty quick and learn to do things on your own from that standpoint. But it's a lot of fun. You're around 30 guys just hanging out, playing baseball, a game that you love to play.
Moved a little bit closer to home last year when you went to Beloit, Wisconsin.
Yeah, playing in Beloit gave my family a lot of opportunities to come up. I know they pretty much came up every start that I made during the season or whatever, so that was kind of nice. This year I'm really not for sure where I'll be. Maybe California if things go well, and that limits the amount of time that they'll be able to come out. So it's kind of nice being in Beloit, just having people there to watch you play.
What was the Midwest League like as far as talent is concerned?
As far as the talent?
Yeah.
The Midwest League is usually known to be a pitcher's league, but they say that the league's getting tougher every year as more players come out and everything. The talent pool's getting a lot better. So, I ran into some really good players throughout the league, like the Ryan Anderson, the 6'11" kid from Detroit that everybody talks about. So, there's a lot of good players in the league and everything, but we're just all looking to move up.
This has been 27 Minutes here on WJTS UPN 27. I'm Kurt Gutgsell. Have a great weekend.